let me set up a little bit the computer. I don't see my mouse. My mouse is here. There you go. So, okay, welcome to the second part of the front-end development course. This time we'll focus on CSS. First, we're gonna do a quick introduction about what is CSS about. Then we're gonna learn how to connect the multiple ways to connect CSS files and then check which ones are the best ones for each case scenario. Then we're gonna start learning how to control the HTML tags. And by that, I mean how to start making design styles. Then we're gonna learn about the rule hierarchy, or in other words, why sometimes my code doesn't work. So yeah, that will be an important one. Then we're gonna start moving to make a responsive design. We're gonna learn how to make our websites starting from the mobile instead of making a website from the desktop for a computer and then try to cram them into a smaller device. We're gonna do the other way around. We're gonna make websites that work perfectly on mobile before we start adding features for the desktop. Then we're going to mention more advanced layout handling. By layout, I mean how to position elements on the screen. Finally, and most at the end, we're going to see the style elements, and finally some tips for project management. So yeah, we have a lot of info to cover. We're probably going to stand for more than 2 hours today. So let's do with the introduction. What is CSS? On the left, you can see a normal web page, just like the ones that we were doing yesterday. Pure text on the screen, information on the screen without any styles. And CSS allowed us to do this, to redesign it's the same content, exactly the same content, but by applying CSS, we can start making choices of font, position elements on the screen. We can even start organizing stuff in columns. You can see the work experience is divided in 3 sections instead of a vertical positioning, and so on and so forth. So that's why we need to have CSS files. Then the question will be, how do we connect how do we connect our HTML with the CSS? As I mentioned yesterday, we can put the style tag inside the head tag for just quick demos. But for bigger projects, the correct way, and something that we are actually see a little bit about yesterday, is using the link tag. And the link tag allows us to put a file, either a file from the web, like in the example shown right now, or a file inside our project folder that is called a relative path. So these are the 2 ways to do it. And just let me move a little bit the Zoom window because I have a text that I want to read as well. Where is my mouse? Oh, okay. But okay, no, it's the same thing that I just mentioned about the relative versus the absolute paths. Okay.
Eduardo, if you put both, it doesn't work, right?
What do you mean? In the same line, or you can, but you can mix and match files. So, for example, sometimes I can put one file from the internet and then put another file inside my own project folder just to complement the design. So, yes, you can combine files.
Okay, but I meant combining style with link if you want to override some stuff from.
Yes, you can do it, but as I mentioned, try to never, never, ever use a style tag again. In fact, if you can erase that information from your brain entirely, it will be quite useful. Only use the style for quick demos, like you're trying to explain some concept or showcase something in the screen, just use the style. But for any project, forget that the style tag exists at all. Use the link tag. I cannot be 100% sure, but probably the style tag was a feature from HTML 1 or 2 before the link tag was invented in HTML 3. It was definitely invented by HTML 4. This is the version that I started to use. So the tag on the left is for legacy purposes. So and the problem is that you're having one file. Let's go back to this image. You are not having separation of concerns. You are trying to have one single file that contains both the text that you want to show to the user and the files that decide how the text should look on the screen. So you are combining information with graphic design into a single file. So it's a really bad practice to have that. So that's why we actually have a tag to tell the design will reside in a different file. So different people, especially when you're working in the group project, Some people can work on the HTML for the information on the screen, and another set of people can work only in the graphic design. So people can work at the same time. Otherwise, it will be a mess. So for now, starting this point onwards, forget that the style tags exist at all, and we're gonna use link tags only. But technically, yes, you can combine files, but forget about it. So next topic. Okay, now that we know how to connect the files, and let me just actually show it how to make it in a quick demo in Visual Studio Code before we move to the topic number 3. Let me close this one and create a new project. I will call this one lecture 2. We'll drag it to the Visual Studio Code. Perfect. I will create a quick index. Well, HTML5, and I'm gonna call that lecture 2 CSS. I will copy this one. I'll put H1. And yes, with practice, you will reach this coding speed. So don't worry, it's something that takes time. So, okay, we mentioned that we can put the link tag, for example, here, link, and then Visual Studio Code will put this rel reference. This is necessary to tell the machine that this file that is going to be imported is a CSS file. So don't forget about this one. And this is the path of the file. We can use the one that is in the SDA platform, for example. Let me move this control from end. Wheels. Okay. And now today we're going to explain what is this information on. Just give me 1 second. And now let me reload the page. Rebel Finder. Okay, this is how we import a file from the web. But if we want to import a file also from our computers, this will be a absolute path for files over the internet. And now let's create a relative path. Files or project. I will say skip the word project folder because at this point, project and project folder is the same. Something important, please be organized. For this kind of files, create a folder called CSS. That's a convention. And inside this one, let's go create, for example, I usually call it the style. I see main as well. And for this one, I don't think there is a convention, but I like to use the style because this is what is the name for it. Cascade style sheet. And we're gonna see later what the C in cascade means. So let's create a simple example. Body. Body is the main wrapper of the page. And we're gonna see that in the detail as well. Background color, just red, just to test it out. And we're gonna do the same, link. And this time we're gonna play with the location. To navigate between our folders, press a dot, slash, and then Visual Studio Code will show you your project structure. Right now we can have the index, we have the CSS folder, we open the CSS folder, and then we open the only file that is here. Save, and go back to the browser. And, oh, let me open Finder again. Desktop, lecture 2, index. And you can see that this one is overriding this one. So I will comment this one for 1 second, reload the page, and you can see that the changes appear. So this will be the way that we're gonna start including our CSS files from now on with the link tag. So let's go back to this one. And now that we connected the files, let's move to controlling the HTML tags using CSS rules. So we have 4 ways to control the CSS. We can call it by HTML tags by the tag itself. For example, let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let me create, for example, one tag for the paragraph. Remember, lorem ipsum is just placeholder text, and I will put the text side by side right now, the CSS file. There you go. Yeah, perfect. So this is called controlling the CSS, the HTML tags by tag. So if you want to change the color of the title and only the title, for example, let me put this one color white. Let me save, reload. And you will see that both the title and the paragraph are white. But if I want to control only the color of the title, it's the heading one. Literally copy the tag, put it here, and inside curly braces, you will be able to modify the properties. In this case, color, and you can say, for example, yellow. And if I reload the page, only the title is modified. And we can do the same for the paragraph. Color, or even background color, for example, background color, white, and then color black. Reload the page, and we can modify this stuff. So you can call directly the tag. These ones will be global. The problem with this element, the problem with this tag is that is global. What I mean by global is that, for example, if I go back to my CSS code and let me add another paragraph, Lorem 2, I save it. Both paragraphs contain receive the same style because this p tag is affecting every single p tag that you find inside the project. So if you want to have one particular paragraph that behaves differently to the rest, this is where the call by class enters the game. This is the most most common way to actually stylize your projects is to give a particular name to each tag in your HTML page. So, for example, if I want to say that this one behaves a little bit different for this one, I can assign a particular name for this one. Imagine that it's the equivalent of creating a class in Java, an instance of an object in Java, and assigning a particular name for this particular object. So it will be the closest analogy. So you create class, and I say my paragraph. And now I assign a particular name for this one, so I can add style for this one in particular. So how do we call this one? You just copy this one, copy this text. And instead of doing this, because this doesn't exist, in fact, Visual Studio Code complains that this HTML tag doesn't exist because my paragraph is not an HTML tag, it's a class. So to call a class, you use the dot notation, and then you just start making codes. For example, I can say background color blue, and then the color red. And if everything goes well, this one changes and this one doesn't change. So this is the way to add CSS to a particular element. So this is the second way. Now let's go to the third one. Let me put it in the full screen to make it a little bit more visible. The ID is similar to the class. It's giving a unique name to HTML tag. The difference is that you are just as you probably know by the name ID, it means that you should only use this name only once. In fact, previous browsers, you try to put multiple, if you try to repeat the same ID, remember ID, imagine a database. We already learned a lot about IDs during the software engineering module. So this is an ID, for example, first paragraph. First P, and yeah. Previous older browsers, if you try to do this, they will crash because, as you probably learn in software engineering, when we are working with tables or some kind of project, ID should be a unique name. So you can reutilize the name class if you want. For example, if I copy this paragraph twice or 3 times, and I want that, for example, the first one and the middle one also share this class, that's okay. If I reload the page, that's okay, you can do this. But you are not allowed to put 2 IDs in the same page. Even if it works, it's a bad practice, and even older browsers crash it because you're trying to assign the same name to the same tag. So use the ID only when you know that you're 100% sure that this element is not repeated anywhere else on the page. When we reach React, we can teach you a nice trick to how to organize your files by literally telling each page will contain one particular ID, but that will be in the next lectures. For now, let me see how do we can call this ID in case we want to call it. We cannot use the dot notation because for some weird reason you can actually call another the class. You can also call the class. Let me delete this one. First P. This class and this ID are two different entities, different elements. So you can have a class called my first P and an ID called first P. So they're different. So to call the ID, you need to use this hashtag notation. So first P, first, just copy paste. And then background color green or gray, color red. Let's test it. And there you go. And finally, the last method, and I put. By the way, the color. The reason I put coloring in these details is because the green ones are the correct ways. This one is a caution, and the caution I already mentioned is that you can only use one ID per the same one name of ID per project. You can use another ID, for example, ID second P, but you cannot. You can never repeat first P once it's inside this page. So that's what is put in yellow as a warning. And finally, this one is a red one because this is something that I can teach you. So only that you know that it exists, but you should never ever do this. Is you can actually write a CSS code inside the tag. So you can literally put a style here and say, for example, background color, for example, this color blue, and then color black. This actually works. But again, I was mentioning separation of concerns. We want to focus that these files on this file on the left, the HTML only contains the information that we want to show to the user to the screen, and this file that is the CSS takes care of the design. When you are trying to put code, graphic design code inside your HTML document, you are making a mess because you have information for the user and information for the browser for the graphic design in a single file. So again, separation of concerns, and this is important. This is what separates a rookie developer from an experienced developer. I know that the movies and maybe the pressure in the circles and developers say that a senior developer is a smart person that let me open the platform. This is important. And by the way, somebody saying that I usually use strong words when I speak. That was a complaint in the SDA module, but for this one, it will be super mega hyper necessary. So, warning ahead. People think that the difference between a junior developer and a senior developer is that the senior developer can open these extra labs and see these two, for example, these two exercises and think that they are super easy to solve. The reality, this is bullshit. The difference between a junior developer and a senior developer is that the senior developer knows how to organize their project. This is why we teach the software engineering module. You can complain that the software engineering module went too much on project management for large scale organizations instead of a project management for software developers. And I can agree with that point. But the point that I'm trying to make right now is that the difference between a junior developer and a senior developer is that the senior developer can understand the difference between a separation of concerns. So my file on the left is the information for the user on the screen. My file on the right is my graphic design elements. And a senior developer understands that you should not never mix and match. So this kind of tags should never be used at all. So yeah, so if, for example, if you were having problems solving this one, don't worry. This only demonstrates that you have an IQ above 115. Congratulations about that if you solve it, but you can have a nice career without having to know how to solve this one in particular, as long as you know how to organize your files. So, okay, let's continue. So remember, it can be done, but never do that, because otherwise you will be stuck as a junior developer, and you will never graduate to become a senior in your life, because this is what separates the juniors from the seniors. The seniors know how to organize the project, so they make the project easier to work on. And this is super important when you reach the group project, because if somebody in your team made the mistake of using this style tag here, and you're working, for example, and you put, for example, background color here, background color red, and then you put a background color blue here, this one takes priority, and anything that you try to do will not work. And this one will have a background color red, and everybody in your team will try to open the CSS files and see where's this background color red is appeared in the project. They cannot solve it, but somebody made the mistake of putting the style tag here. It was almost impossible to find it. So this is very important. This is what separates the junior from the senior. It's not this kind of abstract, super mega hyper complex exercises like the extra labs. So this is actually what separates the rookies from the seniors. So let's continue. We already saw this one. So again, confusions between terms. Yesterday we saw the header and the link. And now we're going to introduce a new one, the OPP class, the ones that you saw in Java, and versus the CSS. The CSS are only for the design. It's just a name. It's adding a name for your particular tag. It's not an object-oriented class with all the properties that Java has. Why do we have similar names then? Developers are weird, so yeah, you know that. So remember, class in CSS is just giving a name to a particular tag or group of tags, just to do some styling. It has nothing to do with instances, Java, creation of objects, etc., etc., etc. So again, developers are supposed to be super intelligent, but they freaking suck at putting names to make it easy to understand. To be honest, for some reason, they are super proud of making stuff super hard to understand. Why? I honestly don't know. But you need to understand that. Okay, next topic. Rule hierarchy, also known as why my CSS code is not working. This is the typical gotchas that I have seen during the SDA in the previous years. Number one, and this is important. If you put in a tag, and let me show you right away. Let me delete the entire code here. Let me go from scratch. Let me delete absolutely everything. Now this is a p tag, sorry. And I will put here, I will put it in alphabetical order. Class, for example, my paragraph, my class. And then I will put ID and my ID. And just for the demo purposes, I will repeat the ID. You know that you are not supposed to do this. Remember, other browsers can crash. I know that modern browsers will never crash for something as simple as this. But again, get used to never use the ID twice. I'm only gonna do it for a demonstration right now. So I will call my class and we'll say background color. Class will be blue with color white, and my ID will be background color red and color black. Perfect. And I will reload the page. This one. And you can see that only one style is appearing on the screen, only the one with the background color red. Let me put this one side by side. And you just realize that my class is not taken into account. And it's not because I put it here first and then this one deleted, because I put it here and this one is in very different order. So it's not the order of the classes. By the way, the order has nothing to do. The machine will, behind the scenes, the machine will organize your HTML tag, properties in alphabetical order, like it was an object. So behind the scenes, it doesn't matter if you put the ID first, The computer, when it started to process your web page, will cut the information and organize it and sort it in alphabetical order. So it doesn't have to anything with the order of the code written. It has everything to do with the hierarchy. IDs take priority over classes. So that's why it's super important to be super cautious about using IDs. Don't use the ID only for super specific purposes. So for me, you block elements of the page, and then use class for the rest, because the IDs will override everything that you're trying to do. And if you write inline CSS, that probably overrides everything else anyways. So for example, if I copy this one again, in this one, and I put the style tag, and say background color, white, and then reload the page, and if everything goes well, yeah, nothing is happening. My background color is red, it's not appearing on the screen. And then all your fellow developers will try to look at the CSS files for hours trying to find why the third paragraph that has an ID has an ID doesn't work. It's because somebody fucked it up and literally put the style here. So the style tag has priority over everything, and never use it. Let's go back to this one. Another gotcha that sometimes you create a class. Remember, the notation is class. And you're trying to override stuff. Remember, when you're working in group projects, people will be writing a lot of CSS files. So if somebody wrote some code with a class with a simple generic name like center, and you also create a class called center, they will start conflicting with each other. So you need to communicate with your team what you're trying to do to avoid this. But don't worry, I will give you a nice tip to how to avoid these kind of problems in the last point of this lecture, the one that is called project management. And another problem that sometimes your code doesn't work, your CSS code doesn't work, is because you are importing external libraries. Yesterday I showed you the one called Sakura. That was only for learning purposes. Now that you are starting to learn CSS, you should never depend on libraries. In fact, I will show you by the end of this module that for front-end development positions, sometimes even in the coding test, on the coding interview, they told you make the design of the page, but never use Bootstrap. In fact, let me show you right away something so you can see that it's not a lie. Let me go to content, front-end development. Assets, I think it's this one. Let me go this one. This is an optional one, but let me find the word Bootstrap. And you can see this one. It's not allowed to use Bootstrap and similar. Why not? Even the recruiter told me, because Bootstrap is shit. They totally understand something. These libraries like Bootstrap, and you saw the example yesterday when you added Sakura. If you did the exercise, as soon as you add the library, it's super easy. You go from zero design to a lot of design in just one line of code. It's amazing. The problem is that when you try to personalize your design and try to make it super personalized, that library that helps you in the beginning now is started to limit your creativity, because the library has some opinions on how the page should look like, and you have a totally different opinion of how the page should look like, and they will start conflicting between each other. And if the library started to use IDs that are more powerful than classes, and you're trying to use classes, then you have a big problem, because the browser will start giving more priority to the Bootstrap or another CSS library to your own code, and that's super frustrating. So that's why front-end developers are moving away from using libraries. And I know that are still popular, but the common consensus is move away from using libraries and start writing your own CSS code, because CSS has become so powerful that there is no excuse to use a library. Maybe a little bit of history. 5 years ago, creating a code for just making columns was super difficult. So using a library like Bootstrap to just make the code for columns on the screen was a nice compromise. But right now, and I will teach you today how to make columns with just one line of code, then there is no excuse to use this one. This is legacy. Modern companies are moving away from this one because they understand that it will take more time to modify a web page using Bootstrap than to write the CSS from scratch. Again, putting Bootstrap will go from zero design to a lot of design, and the web page will look pretty in one line of code. But then when you want to make something personalized, Bootstrap will start making take you more time to personalize than writing CSS code from scratch. So it will be the analogy of the turtle versus the hare. You know, this kid's history. You know, the tale. This will be basically Bootstrap. Bootstrap will be the bunny. It starts super fast, but at the end of the project, the people that wrote the CSS by hand will finish first because it's not a race but a marathon. So yeah, another tip about this one. So be super aware, be super scared of using Bootstrap. This is not a tool. It's a pain in disguise. So okay, next topic. Responsive design. Now let's start speaking about the most important part of CSS. CSS allows you to organize your content based on the screen size. So I'm going to show you a quick example before even start speaking about mobile design. Let me delete everything here. And let me delete everything here. Just clean the project. Perfect. So we can tell the machine, please modify the web page based on the screen size. So for example, let me put background color, sorry, and the body tag to call everything. Let's put background color red. Perfect. Let me save it. Let me see why it doesn't work. Background color red. Oh, because it's a movie. Body. Perfect. And because we haven't mentioned anything about the screen size, regardless of the screen size, the web page will always be red. By the way, both in Safari and in Google Chrome, you have tools to simulate a device. For example, in this one, I can say that this is how it's going to look on an iPhone. And we can go, for example, to an iPad mini. This is how the web page is going to look on an iPad mini, on an old computer, super old computer, or on a crappy laptop, in a desktop monitor, and so on and so forth. So right now we told the machine background color is going to be red always because we haven't specified screen sizes, but we can tell the machine, hey, once we reach certain screen size, I want to change the background color. So for example, I can say, hey, if we are bigger than 400 pixels, change color. And let's do that. We can say media, open parentheses, mean width, and we can say 400 pixels. And then anything that is inside this property is not a function, but let's call it a function because it looks quite similar to a function. Remember that it's not a function because a function should have the name and the space in the same time. This will be a function, but this is not a function. Let's call it a function because it's 90% close. So anything inside this function will be executed when the screen size is bigger than 400%. So let's change the background color. Body. You need to tell the tag body. Sorry, let me copy it. Body, and then let's put green. And before I show it, let's just go directly with different screen sizes. So for example, 400, 400, and this can be blue. And then I can copy another one for 750. Don't worry about these values. You can put any value you want. And then I will give you some tips of which values I do like to use personally. And yeah, pretty much it. Let's test it out. Reload the page. And we know that on an iPhone is red. And when I start to make the screen size bigger, it goes green, then blue. And when the screen is big enough, it becomes red. If I exit this one, and I do the same here, if I change the screen size, it becomes blue. And because I cannot make the screen smaller, I cannot go to green or red. So we can see that the machine can change the CSS layout based on the screen size. So this is the property. It's called media query. Let's continue. And you can see that the information is the same here. So the media query allows you to wrap CSS code or special rules that allow to tell the browser to only route this code based on a special size. And this is called the media query. And what is mobile? Mobile first. Mobile first means that, and this is the important part, mobile first means that you should write your code for mobile literally first. So if for some reason this code doesn't exist, the website should behave well on mobile. What is that? Quite simple, because nowadays almost 78% of the traffic comes from the mobile, not from the desktop. So even if ironically you are coding on a laptop screen or maybe in a desktop monitor connected to your laptop, your average consumer will not be using a computer to watch your to browse your website. It will use a mobile device. So you need to learn to get used to code your website for working on mobile. And most importantly, a mobile website on a desktop doesn't look that bad on a desktop versus a desktop website inside a mobile, where you need to zoom in, zoom out. You probably have that experience before, that sometimes you enter a really old website on your phone and then you need to zoom in, zoom out all the time just to try to read the information, because the desktop website inside a mobile is like having a big screenshot inside your phone. You need to zoom in to see the details. So it's a really bad experience. But watching a mobile website inside your big monitor is okay. So that's why you need to learn how to code your website to work first on the mobile, and then starting to add more features, like for example the columns, to make the columns appear from left to right when you reach a certain screen size. Yep, and this is the properties. You can go with media directly. You can read what this screen means. The screen means that you can actually target both printers as well. You can target screen orientation. So for example, you can tell if my device, for example, a mobile phone is horizontal, you can have a special rules just for that. So you can click on this link to learn more about these properties. But for now, you can just get by using this one. Remember the space, because it's not a function, with this. So let's continue. And now let's go to the recommended sizes. This is based on my experience. It doesn't mean that you need to follow these rules. If you work for a company can have a different design, different sizes. But for me, based on an old framework that I used to use to make websites called Skeleton CSS, these media queries are quite useful. You don't need to write it down because are in the slides, but something to explain. First, I code for mobile devices. So that literally, I don't use media queries for mobile. My website is only for mobile devices. So imagine that the rest of the code is deleted for some reason. My website will work both on mobile and on desktop. Then, when it's bigger than 400 pixels. Now let's read this one from the beginning. It doesn't mean from zero. This line doesn't means this one does not mean from 0 to 400. This is a no. It means after 400. So this is larger than 400, and this is for tablet devices. So what are, sorry, phablet devices. What is a phablet device? Are the super big phones, a Galaxy Note, an iPhone Max. It was called Plus, iPhone 6 Plus, iPhone 7 Plus, and now are the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the Galaxy Note, the Galaxy 21 Ultra, and so on and so forth. These are way bigger than a normal phone. So this is what it be for without media queries for any device in the world, starting smartphones. This one for these special mega hyper big phones. Then you go for tablets, 550. Then for laptops and desktop, 750. And then for a big monitor, 24 monitor, 160. I know that you probably know a resolution called this one, but if you put this rule, it will not work in your 24-minute monitor, because this rule means after 1020, and your monitor is actually 920. So this means it will run literally after this one. So by 1 pixel, your rule will never run. So by experience, use this one. So let's go. Let me read the chat just for one moment. Let me see the typical good morning, blah, blah, blah. Should we have a known modules inside the public file? Okay, the answer is no. This is totally unrelated to the CSS, but yeah, no. The known modules is just your installation files. It doesn't go to your web page. The web page is only the files that the user needs, period. Strong words, yes. We are 40 people. Yeah, I don't know who is the rest. Eduardo, so you mean it's not big used to learn Bootstrap? In 2021, the answer is yes, you can get by without learning to use Bootstrap. You can do it on your own in case that you want to apply for more front-end developer jobs. But I will tell you, run away from the companies that are using Bootstrap. They probably are really old school, and they will have a nightmare project to work on. For example, this company that I show you, Glomo, I remember telling the recruiter, yes, I don't use Bootstrap, but just in case, why do you don't want to use Bootstrap? And they told me their horror stories. They are similar to the stories that I hear in Ecuador, that projects being delayed when the client wants changing the design, and people say, oh, changing the design can take 1 day, but it turns out that it can take 1, 2, 3 weeks, and the entire web page is broken, and you have the deadline. So they understand that these things looks like a big boost or a big help, because in one line of code you get a lot of design, but when you start to personalize your web page, it becomes super painful to modify. So yes, my recommendation is stay away from Bootstrap. But if you want to learn Bootstrap just to say that you can work on new projects and old projects, go ahead, learn the basics. But be aware that modern companies, the companies that you actually want to work with, are getting away from this one. Material UI for React. Okay, that's a tricky one. I think that in around 2 years, it will be the similar situation. I think it's the same. I think that the best companies are the ones that are having their own libraries. I can show you some example, for example, from a company that really cares about this. So you will see that it's not Eduardo that is speaking this crazy stuff. This comes from real companies, Atlassian design guideline, design system. So for example, what is Atlassian? Atlassian is the creators of Jira. Jira is the number one. Let me just show you Jira, because I think that you need the context first before you say, oh, wow, Atlassian. You really need to understand that Atlassian is a big name. Okay, if you work on a company that uses Scrum, and this looks like Trello, a Trello board, a Kanban board, Atlassian is the number one company for Scrum software. So if your company uses Scrum, And I don't say cookie Scrum. By cookie Scrum, I mean that people say, oh, we use Scrum, but to be honest, they are disorganized as hell. No, companies that really pay their employees to certify in Scrum, and something that can count easily 6,000 Swedish crowns per employee to certify, these kind of companies that really take Scrum seriously use specialized software to run Scrum. And the number one leading software in Scrum is Jira. And Jira is owned by Atlassian. So even this company has developed their own system. They don't use Material UI, they don't use Bootstrap. They created their own design system because they understand that the only way to have a solid foundation for a strong graphic design brand is to create CSS by scratch. If writing CSS by scratch will not be important, this company will just be using Bootstrap. If you don't trust this one, let's go to another example. IBM design system. IBM doesn't use Bootstrap. They also design their own design system with colors, and they will see, for example, if I create components, see accordion, I see the colors, the components, perfect. You can see that they have the HTML code, they have the React code, and so on and so forth. I will not open it right now. Vanilla CSS, everything opens in a new link. But okay, you can see the code, CSS class. So this is their own classes. They are not using Bootstrap. They are not using Material Design, and so on and so forth. Even Apple Human Design Guidelines. So I will not click on this one, but this is an amazing resource, by the way. I will put it in the chat. This is, if you want to be a serious front-end developer, this is important. So big companies are moving away from this one, and they're trying to make their own content. It's the only way to have the absolute control. I say Material UI for React is still something that you can learn. We're gonna not cover in the module because as I promised you, not as I told you, as I promised you in the first kickoff of the front-end module, I will teach you the best ways to do stuff. I will not teach you the popular ways, but the best ways. So you want to learn Bootstrap? Just do it, go ahead. But be aware that the companies that you actually want to work with are getting away from Bootstrap. And you want to learn Material UI design for React? Again, go ahead. But I will tell you, in 1 or 2 years, it's gonna be probably the same. You will probably see you are not allowed to use any Material UI, blah blah blah, because people expect that a front-end developer can write their own design system. And if the company you end working with is a nice company, they probably have their own design system, and you will need to learn that design system instead of a generic one like Bootstrap or Material UI. So let's continue. But yes, I don't say don't learn it. Learn it, but be aware of that information. Let me see. Let me keep reading the chat. Which more are recommended? More IDs or more classes? Classes, period. Use the ID for something major, for something that you know that is unique in your page. Yesterday we spoke about the nav class that can have, for example, you can say ID menu, and you know that you're talking for the navigation menu only. So that will be something like that. You click enter responsive design and develop it. Perfect. Thank you. Nice tip, Payne. Let me see. I will show you later how to do that the same in Chrome. Why did you add the symbol before the style CSS while naming the CSS file? I think that, Sangeeta, I think that you refer to this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Visual Studio Code has their own icon. So for example, if I call this .gs, it will become a yellow icon. If I put HTML, it will become an orange icon with the tags. If I put GSX, that is extension for React, you will have a nice atom icon, and so on and so forth. And for CSS, you get this hashtag sign.
This hash symbol.
So yeah, it's just the
I
icon.
got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, got it, Eduardo. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, that was the one you referred to. Then blah blah blah. I don't know. You wrote Fiona. Blah blah blah. View. Yeah, we're gonna mention view in the optional technologies. Don't worry. Yeah, this is the icon. Blah blah blah. Perfect. So yeah, let's go back to screen sizes. So remember, you can use these recommended sizes. This is the one that I use in the SDA platform, by the way. So they are bar tested for more than 10 years of experience. So these ones are really good. And I didn't invent it, by the way. I use it from another library called CSS Skeleton. So, okay, how do we test it in Safari? We already mentioned it. You have the instructions here. I will do it right away, just in case. In Safari, to enable these preferences, you go to Advanced, you mark this one, and you will see that in the menu bar, develop appears. You mark the check, and then you go develop, enter responsive mode. And the shortcut is Control Command R. And in Chrome, you have a similar tool. Let me open Chrome. Let me open, for example, this web page. Let me open Chrome. Yes. Give me 1 second. I open this web page. And in Chrome, if you go to inspect element, and let me close this one. I think it's this one. If I click, show console draw. Oh yeah, it's this icon. You can see this icon that is on mobile phone and a tablet. This allows you to enter the mobile define, and you can click here to change the sizes, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you can even supposed to simulate the speed of line, change rotation of the device, and so on and so forth. So yeah, quite complete. It's the same as the Safari one. So okay, now let's move to the next topic, and let me see if we're gonna take a break. No, we're gonna take a break in 8 minutes. Layout handling. Now let's start speaking about how to position elements on the screen. Yesterday we showing this example. HTML elements with a display block will be rendered from top to bottom, and elements with the display in type inline will be rendered from left to right. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Let me just to showcase this one. I will go, for example, p tag, background color. Oh no, I will use this wildcard means that every single tag will have the same properties. So I will say background color, for example, gray, and I will add some padding. Padding is a space inside the elements, and I will show more information about the padding in a moment. So I will say, for example, 8 pixels. And margin is space between elements. Again, I will explain it a little bit later. So margin, let me reload the page. Perfect. Everything has, but the problem is that including the body. So now I will need to put a P and span. Perfect. So you can see that the P tag creates elements that takes the entire screen. So you can see that as soon as I make the screen smaller, you can see that it always takes the full width of the web page. And if there is not enough space, it goes to the next line. But you always keep this block behavior of taking the entire screen web page width. So I will open a graphic design app just to showcase this example. And so you can see it on a visual element. So imagine that this is your device, and let's use a tablet. No, let's use I don't have a computer device. Well, let's simulate the iPhone. Let me put a background color to this one so you can see the background color of the app. I'll do this. So let's say that you create a P tag. I will put it upside the screen. And this is a P tag. As soon as you download the web page from the browser and the browser starts to stylize the P tag, the p tag is designed to be like that, render like this. It will always take the screen size. And if for some reason the device is bigger, then this one will always accommodate and will always take the same space. On the other hand, the span tag, let's just put this on from here, lorem ipsum again, and I will put this one span lorem ipsum again. If I reload, you can see that they started to mount, started to put on top of each other, and I will just change the colors. This one will be background color blue, light blue, and span will be pink, background color pink. So you can see the difference, and you can see that this is the first span tag, and this is the second one. So you can see this small gap. Let me just zoom in. This small gap to signify when the first one starts and the first one ends and the second one starts. So if we go back to the graphic design app, and we'll paint this one blue so you can see the colors match on the screen a little bit lighter. If this is a p tag, and if I clone the p tag, the second one will be just like that. But the span tag, let me showcase outside the screen. Let me paint it pink so you can see the colors. So if this is a span tag, this will only take the space that it needs. Let me do. So for example, if you have some text, let me just write some text inside here. Hello world. And let me put this one inside the screen. Put it black. So if this is the text, your span will only take this space. There you go. If I clone it and put another one, let me put the span again. If I clone it, it will not go on the bottom like the div tag. It will go here because this is the behavior of the displaying in line. And if I type more text, hello world, how are you? The browser will behind the scenes will do this. There you go. And as soon as you put a p element, for example, if I copy this one, this is the first one. Let me just put it in order. 1, 2. So you can see the elements on the screen, they match. The element number 3, element number 4. Let me put this one, this is number 3. Hello. Or I will paste it just to make a space. And this one is the number 4. And this one will be number 1. Hello. This one will be number 2. Bye. This one will be hello inside the p tag. I will wait. This one will be, and this one goes with this one. There you go. And this one goes here. There you go. This will, oops. And this one will be the p tag. I want to showcase something. There is a good reason for this. Don't worry. P. And this one will be the second p. Again. P. Okay. If I have a third div, I will make a question for the element number 5. Let's say that this is element number 5, the p tag. I will put it on the bottom. I want to know which one will be the correct behavior. This one. Ignore the text being here like this. Or this one. Can somebody answer? Which one should be the correct behavior? Somebody wants to guess? Well, I will tell you. The correct behavior is this one, because elements with displaying block will always take the entire width of the page. So this behavior will never appear. So no, it's this one. As soon as you put a p tag, it will go directly to the next line, and this space will be wasted, entirely wasted. So this is the difference between block and inline, and then you can see how it behaves when you start mix and match each one. So actually, let me show this one particular example right away here. So just hello, one hello here, and let me delete this one. And after that, we go to the break. Don't worry. To buy, then span 3, hello world, span 4. And finally, if everything goes well, and I don't look by, let's see the behavior, if it matches what I said. Yep, it's exactly what I said. This one, instead of going here and use this space will become wasted, and it goes directly to the next line. So this is important, because when you start to use mix CSS with HTML, you need to learn which tags, and this will be by practice. And you just can confirm which tag is which one, which behavior, by just open, right click, inspect the element. And if you go, for example, in Chrome, in Safari, you can see that, for example, this span has display inline, and the P tag has display block. So you really need to memorize that. Elements with display block will have this behavior. Elements with display type inline will have this behavior. But don't worry. I think that around 90% of the HTML tags has a display block. But important tags like image, span, image span, that are one of the most used ones, are inline. So you need to be aware of that. And the A tag that is for links is also displayed inline. So you need to be aware of that behavior and say, oh, okay, what is happening? No, this is what is happening behind the screen. So, okay, let me read the chat, and then we're gonna have a small break. Put a new file, more precise option, not clever. So, okay, now this is a conversation. So, okay, we're gonna have a small break, 14 minutes, so we can start at 10:15 sharp. So, see you. What do you mean, Ismail? I will answer it, even if we are on a break.
Yeah, Eduardo, I just want to check the size of a laptop, the size of, as
Okay.
you showed, actually,
Yeah,
for mobile.
So you click this device, and then just start playing with the.
Sorry, from the first, sorry.
Okay, yeah. You right click, inspect.
Inspect, okay.
And then you open this option. It will not have these nice buttons that Safari has. That's why I prefer the responsive mode in Safari, because the Safari has these templates with the beautiful icons. But no, Google Chrome doesn't have it. You just need to manually drag and drop like this. But I think you can click here. Oh yeah, this is it. This is so intuitive. It's so bad. Yeah, these small spaces are the device sizes. Yeah,
no, Eduardo,
definitely.
you can click on responsive as well, and then you have the device
perfect.
options.
Yeah, nice. Oh. Yeah, that's the best approach. Thank you, Janko.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can see, and you can even create template devices and have a big list. Yeah, nice one, Janko. Nice one. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Welcome.
So welcome back, and let me start sharing the screen again. So we were about here, perfect. So we were talking about controlling the space, and we explained how to how the most CSS tags either fall in the category of display block or display inline. Moving on, the next topic to cover are the margins and padding, that are also one of the most important elements for CSS styling. What are the difference between margin and padding? Let me showcase a nice example. If, for example, I delete everything here, and I will say P, Lauren, this will be the first class, and this will be second P. Let me see the chat. Did I? Can we have a span inside tag? The answer is yes. Basically, every single tag in HTML that has an opening and closing like this one means that you can actually mix and match and combine everything. So yes, in fact, this is the way to, when you want to stylize something. Hello, this is perfectly valid. So yeah, every time that you as you can see, basically you can see from here, HTML is wrapping around tags, and inside the body tags you have another body tag. So yes, this is how you build HTML tags, by putting tags inside other tags to make a more complex project. So yes, it's totally valid. I have some problems using the UL inside the P tag. Yeah, that one will be, in that case, put the UL tag outside the paragraph. The paragraph will mean that you want the list inside the paragraph, and from putting the UL tag inside the P tag will be the equivalent of opening Microsoft Word or similar, writing some text here. Super fast, copy paste, and expect to put the UL around here, and don't expect it to break. Just like in Word, it will not make that much sense. So that's the same behavior. So in that case, you usually, when you want to express something, you put a dot, move to the next paragraph, and between paragraph, you add your bullet point, list items, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it will be exactly the same behavior that in Microsoft Word or similar programs. But okay, now let's focus on the elements that I want to showcase right now. If I put, for example, I don't even need a first. I will just put, for example, margin, AP, margin 50 pixels, and I will reload the screen. And you can see that the element moved from you can use the lecture title as a reference. This one is a little bit to the right. It has moved a little bit. But if I do padding and I put 50 pixels, you see a similar example. It's a little bit more down, but you can see that the elements are in different positions on the screen. So what is happening? And let me just showcase this example by using 2 paragraphs now to showcase the difference. Class, because this is the difference between margin and padding is a super basic topic that you need to dominate right away as a front-end developer. Class second. Let me just put instead of this one is first background color, so we can differentiate it. I will put yellow, and this one will be, no, I will use a light color, light green, and margin 50% margin, 50 pixels. And I will comment the background for a while so you can see the difference. Second, padding 50 pixels as well. I will add the color, background color, like pink, salmon, okay. And I will comment remember, I'm commenting by using command /. So right now we only have the properties margin and padding to compare. As you can see, they behave exactly the same. So does anybody knows what is the difference between margin and padding? Can explain it to everybody?
I can try.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Padding is it moves like text only. The border still stays, yeah,
Okay.
which is invisible in your example, but the margin moves the whole border.
Yeah. Now, yeah, nice explanation. I make it visual now so everybody can see it. If I add the background, we're gonna see the difference between margin and padding. If I reload the page, you can see that the example on the bottom, let me just put it side by side so you can see it. Let me exit responsive mode. You can see that the first one has the background color green, and you can see that the 50% means that I'm moving my element 50% here, 50 pixels here, and 50% here in relation to the title, and then 50% in relation to the other element. The other one that use padding, on the other hand, sorry, I should have clicked it. The other one that is padding is the element starts from the entire width of the web page, and what is actually moving is the text inside the box to make it this 50 pixels space inside. So let me just remove this one and just have this one side by side like this. Let me remove this 50% here so you can see it better. As you can see, the paragraph starts with the entire width of the screen, something that we said because it's display block. But as soon as you do margin, let me use margin left, for example, margin left, 50 pixels, and you will see what is happening. We're moving 50% to the left. If we put margin right, 50%, then you will see that it's making the box having a space between the sides of the screen. Same with margin top, 50%. Now it will be pushing to the bottom. There you go. And margin bottom, 50%, 50 pixels. Now it will push this one, it will add a space between these ones and these ones of 50 pixels, and it will push down the next box. And the same with the padding. So let's see the padding in effect right away. Padding left. Let's start without padding. Reload the page. And let's add padding left so when we can see the difference. Padding left. Makes sense. Save it. And you can see that instead of pushing the box to the right, it's pushing the content inside the box to the right. And this will showcase the difference because in this one, you can see that the background starts at the border. In this one, the background starts here, and there is this space inside the box. So it's literally, let's use an example in the graphic design tool so we can see the process step by step. So this is my web page. Let me use an iPhone as an example here. Perfect. So if I have a text, let me put the light color. I was using a green. With margin, hello world. And let me wrap it up. Now let me write something until it reaches the screen, the entire screen. Perfect. Align center group. With margin, what we are doing is move these ones here like that. And when there is no space, this is what will happen. We'll try to push the text a little bit like that. On the other hand, with padding is, let me change the background, padding to salmon. There you go, a little bit red. Padding, in the other hand, instead of moving this box, is moving the text inside, and it says move 50%. This is the behavior. So in one, I'm moving with padding, I'm moving the content inside my box. The box is the content inside the tag. I'm moving this one to the right, and in this one, I'm moving the entire box to the right. So this is a huge difference. So let me showcase again one more time here. So in margin, If I put a margin to the top, I move a little bit the boxes between elements to the right. The same with the margin right. Same with the margin bottom. Same with the margin left. And with the padding, it's inside the box. The margin top, margin left, margin bottom, margin right. And when you don't specify a background, they look and behave quite similar. So that's why you need to always, when you're getting used to code in CSS, always use these fancy weird colors on purpose, so you can literally see what are happening behind the screen. Because if you don't put the background color, the behavior is super similar, and you can see the space, they start at the same space. So you will see that they are the same, but they are super different. But you need to understand what is the difference behind the scenes. And the best way to see the difference behind the scenes is by adding a background color for testing. So, okay, let's move to the next topic. And this one is a little bit more complex. So before that, I will read the chat. So the padding is the space around the element inside the border, while the margin is the space. Perfect. Beautiful description, Dakori. Yes. The padding is the space around the element inside the element, and the other one is outside the element. Can we use margin and padding together? Of course, because they are totally different behaviors. One thing is I want to, let me go again in this one, in this example, in the graphic design app. Of course that you can combine them, because sometimes, let's say that you have two elements. Let me see, you have two elements side by side. Each one has a piece of text. So for example, I will say this one. Of course you can combine them, because let me just write a little bit more text. Perfect. Yeah, because let's say that you want, let me copy this one. You can combine them, of course, because let's say that this is the default spacing and you want to make them more separate. Of course, you can use margin. And then you say, you know what? I don't like that the text is too close to the borders. So you can add padding to make them smaller. Of course, by doing that, you will need to make the box a little bit bigger. And the same here. So yes, of course that you can combine them. And this is usually what you do. So there are totally different purposes. So you want to separate elements, you use margin. You want the elements inside my tag separate from the border, then you use padding. So yes, of course you can mix and match. So now the next topic is flex. This is a little bit more complex, and for learning flex, there in the recommended content, there is one mini game called CSS Flex Froggy that will teach you all about CSS. But let me use the graphic design example to visualize what the Flexbox does. For this one, let me also create an example here in the index. Let me delete everything here. Everything but this one. And I will create a div. This will be a class, my flex, to understand what we are doing. And inside my flex, we're going to put a paragraph, Lauren, perfect. And we're going to put an span here, hello world. Another T with another Lauren Ipson, perfect. And now let me add the CSS. For illustration purposes, the div, my flex, will have a background color gray. And I will add a lot of padding, you know, the content inside, so we can see it better. Padding, 50%, 50 pixels, sorry, pixels. Let me showcase the results. Okay, we have the contents here in the center. As we expected, the paragraph goes here, span, and let me add another span here in the middle so we can see that they go side by side. Hello world, goodbye. That sounds like a suicide note, but no, don't focus on that. So I will put the background color blue, like cyan, blue, and the span. I will say background color salmon. So we can see the colors side by side. So yeah, this is what we have seen, and this is what we have expected so far. But let's introduce Flex, and I will explain it here on the graphic design app to make it easier to understand. You have your element, this is the div. Then you have your first paragraph in blue. Then you have your first span in salmon. Something like that. You have the other one here. Oh, sorry. This one here. And then we have the number 3 element here. And these ones are here. So this one will be box number 1, 1, 2, and let me put it below so we can see the same analogy as the HTML. 3. This is the div, and this is basically the 4th element. You know that is just by colors. You know which one are display blocks or paragraph, and display inline the span. So I will make a copy of this. I imagine that if I tell them this gray box that becomes a display flex will start aligning elements in a vertical position like this. Even the spans will behave similar to the block. They will become like this. What is that? Because the properties flex, what it's trying to say is that I want to align my items in a vertical line, something like this. I put them in black. So you will align your elements in between an axis. So if you remember geometry, use this Cartesian plane. So you will align your items in this axis. Or let me just put this one here so you can see the beginning of the line. Or you can align your items in the horizontal axis as well. So you mean the horizontal axis will be something like, just to make it easier, I will rotate it. I think this is the command to rotate. Yeah. So you can align your items in a horizontal axis, and that means that the P will actually now become similar to a span, and these elements will be aligned something similar to this. A little bit more this one to the right. Let me just align the items so they look. There you go. Oh no, actually I want to see this, and these ones will actually be totally in the center, because this is where the, now you understand better. This is what the flexbox property does. It allows you to change the context inside this element. This element will receive the property flex, and all the display block and display inline elements will stop behaving like they should, and they will start aligning to this invisible line. This black line is invisible. Let me put it semi-transparent so we can say that it's an invisible line. There you go. And let's put this one also in semi-transparent so you can see the better elements, and they will start aligning to this one. So let's showcase this example. So with these elements in mind, perfect. Now in my flex, I will say display flex, and let's say flex orientation, flex direction, column. Let's see what is happening. Let me just delete the HTML. Just we focus on the CSS. Perfect. Now the elements are starting to behave just like I said, including the span. Now the span takes the entire width. This look a little bit too close together. So just let me add a little bit margin to visualize better. Margin 20 pixels. And margin here 20 pixels. There you go. So now you can see that the elements are starting to behave like in this picture. And I can change their direction. Let me change the direction from column to row. And now the elements are starting to behave like this. The question is, why I need to do this? And the perfect example is, let me open the CD page, the one that we're gonna start building. Let me open this one, dev from module. This one. State yeah, I think it's this one. Let me open this page. Finder index. This is a perfect example of using display inline. We can play around with the position of the elements, and we can say that, for example, this element is aligned in the middle in relation to this element. So, for example, I open the graphic design app, and let me put it here. And let's start drawing boxes around so we can see what is happening. We have a element here. I will paint it with a black border, gray border to signify the dips. With a border here and another border here around this size. And we want to tell the elements that to be aligned in the vertical axis. But you can also tell the machine that I want this element on the up and the part up, and then these two elements inside will go to the upper position. And just in case, this is a title, I will put it a blue box so you can visualize a little bit better with opacity. This is a P and another P. With flex, we can tell that this element will be aligned to the top or the bottom. In this case, will be aligned in the middle. So you can do a lot with the flex property. But before using flex, you need to be comfortable understanding that most of the tags behave with display block. Most of the elements, some elements like span and image tag displayed within line, especially images. That's the most important one to understand. And when you use flex, you change the entire rules of the whole CSS behaves. So you can achieve more advanced details to organize the stuff on the screen. The perfect example is aligning icons to button labels and so on and so forth. You can do a lot of micro position adjustments when you want to make a really good design using flex. But I will only use flex in specific examples inside one particular div when I want to control the behavior like this. Because if you only want to achieve a visual effect that you want elements position horizontally, you don't need to use flex. You only need to create four spans because they will behave from left to right automatically. So you don't need to do that. So it's only when you want to do a specific designs adjustments that you use flex. So it's a more advanced use case. And the advantage of using this one is that, for example, you can tell, for example, one item instead of going to the right now. I think that they have the flex grow like this. You can tell them to respect their maximum width, the original width, and you can also tell them, for example, item number 3, instead of being aligned to the center, can be go to the item to the left, and you can start playing around with the positioning of the elements. So if for some design choice you want that this element, everything is aligned horizontally, but you want this element to the left. For example, you want this last item positioned like this just for design purposes. This is something that it will be impossible to do without flex. So you can see how inside the box I'm making this item going to the top and this item going to the bottom. So these are the advantages of using Flexbox when you want to do more specialized design. But something to consider, something more advanced. So for now, get used to the basics before we move into this more advanced concept. And now, if Flexbox was a little bit more advanced, there is an even more advanced property called CSS Grid. And CSS Grid, as the name implies, allows you to trace, work with cells, like imagine a Microsoft Excel inside CSS. So you can start using even more complex layouts. But today I will only teach you how to use CSS Grid for a very basic example of creating columns. So we are not going to use CSS Grid for advanced concepts, but in the recommended content, I put a lot of resources in case that you want to learn CSS Grid. With CSS Grid, you can create super complicated layouts, but unfortunately, in 2 weeks, it's impossible to teach CSS Grid. So we're gonna teach the very basics today, but there is a link here. If you click here, where you can start making your own CSS grids. Oh, I think that I will correct this link. Yeah, this link is broken, but I will fix the link and give you the link later. So let's move to the next topic. And I see the chat. Let's move on. Okay, good question. When to use pixels and RAMs and percentage units. Percentage is when you want to say 50% of the screen and you don't know how big is the monitor, so you use percentage. For RAM, I think that I add a resource about that. It's an advanced topic for when once you dominate responsive design, you can start using what is called proportional units. That is a more advanced topic, and I would love to really, this is the kind of topics that I would love to spend 1 week entirely speaking about advanced CSS design. Unfortunately, we have 2 weeks in front-end development to learn about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. So 4 big topics in just 2 weeks. So sometimes I need to sacrifice topics, but yes, RAM is an amazing, wonderful topic. If there is not an additional lecture link in the recommended content, I will look it up something for today because I do have resources for the RAM units, so you can learn that. But that's for more advanced front-end development topics. So for now that we're learning the very basics, I will skip it entirely. Not because I don't like it, not because I don't use it. In fact, I do use for the SDA platform. But unfortunately, when I don't have some little time, I need to skip some topics. I will, maybe I can add it in the optional lecture, but the optional lecture is for the, yes, I will try to make it inside there. Yeah, I will do my best to do it. But the optional lectures are covering even more advanced topics. So even with the optional lectures, I'm running out of time. So, but I will do my best to try to cram more information. But I'm glad that people want to learn more. That's amazing. I really wish that people can choose in the SDA. Do we want to learn 2 weeks of project management, or do we want to learn 4 weeks of front-end development? But outside my scope. So let's go back. And now we speak about positioning elements on the screen. And don't worry, I know that these topics doesn't still sink in. And the only way to actually understand them is to practice. So that's why we're going to start building the CV page today. So that's the best way to learn about these topics. But for now, let's move to the styling elements. Don't worry, these are quite easy to understand. These ones are quite easy to layout handling. But the reason that I put layout first is because when you are designing a page, first you position your elements on the screen, and then you start to make it look pretty. So that's why I teach the layout first. But before we move to styling, let's speak about color. There are 3 ways to add color in CSS. This is the classical one, hex values, because the web was designed for an old time where computers were not able to display millions of colors. They will be able to display thousands of colors. They use 16-bit valued colors that are the hexadecimal values. So with this palette, you can go from, I think it's from 0 colors to 55,000 colors available. And the colors are with these hexadecimal values. Let me open again the graphic design tool. By the way, as you can see that how close related are graphic design tools to web development, you will see what is so important to learn a little bit about graphic design tools if you want to be a front-end developer. And this will be a nice announcement. Today, there is an optional lecture called Introduction to Graphic Design Tools using Figma. So you will learn to do the stuff that I'm doing right now with this tool in Figma today. And as you can see that when I change the color picker, you can see the hexadecimal values here. So these are the colors that the graphic designer in your company, the company you're working for, will give you, and then you will copy these values and put it inside your web page. So this is the most common way because it's the legacy way. The new way is to use RG values that allows you to create the 16 billion colors available, the normal 32 bits color palette. So we're going from 16 bits colors that goes from 0 to 65,000 to 32-bit colors that allows you to go from 0 colors to 16 million colors. It's a big change. I will put it in the chat so you can see the big magnitude jump from 16 bits equal 65 colors, 32 bits equal 16 million colors. So it's a big jump. And every single monitor in the last, not 5, not 10, not 15, not, but 20 years, no, sorry, no, 30, yeah, starting in the 90s, around 92, every single monitor was 32 bits capable. So starting 1992, so we are almost 30 years that we already have computers that can showcase the 32 bits colors. So you may think that this will be the standard in the web design, but unfortunately, the standard still is hex values. And if you don't know why people still use hex values instead of RGB values when every single device on the planet Earth can still showcase the hex palette, is because of something super stupid. You will laugh about this, but this is the reason because hex values are still popular. I can do this and go here, hashtag, and there you go. If you want to use a RGB value, let me change it here. How do I change it here? Just give me 1 second. Oh, my machine is going crazy. Okay, if I click here, my default is the hex, and I don't remember how to change the color. Just give me 1 second. I need to remember how to change my palette color from design system. But you can see that the default is hex. I think it's here. Okay, I think I can change it from here. There you go, RGB. And this is why this is not a standard yet, because when you want to, there is no way that I can copy the 3 values. So if you want to change the color to RGB, you need to write a function, RGB, and then copy 1, then go back to the graphic design app, copy 2, copy 3. This takes a lot of time. Hex value is just this, it's faster. So for that stupid reason, we are still stuck with a small palette color of 55,000. And to be honest, you really have to be a really picky graphic designer to see the difference between 65,000 colors and 16 billion colors, 16 million colors. So that's why we're stuck here, maybe forever. And the third one is the one that we have been using from the last 2 days. You can, the CSS standard has a lot of predefined names, but this is just for the small examples. Now let's move to the generalized styling. These are the most common tags, CSS properties. Forget about rules, it's not rules, it's properties. This is a typo, let me just fix it right away. Common properties. Because we are talking about, remember that CSS is similar to Java objects or JavaScript objects. So you create the element, the object, and then you put a property, a key, and a value. So properties and an object. The most common one is the background color. The background color changes the color of the box behind the HTML tag. Background image is to, instead of using a color inside your tag, you can put an image. And this not only works for the web page, for the entire web page, it also works for any tag. So for example, inside this p tag, I can change a color. For example, if I put this one, I create an image. Let me put it in the desktop, and I say background, and I put it inside my lecture 2 folder. And remember, be organized. If you're gonna handle images, create a folder called images, put it here. And I can say background, URL. Remember dot notation. And why I don't put dot slash? because I'm inside the folder CSS. So I need to go one level up. Let me close this one. I need to go one level up, and to go to one level up, I need to put double dots slash. Now I can go to the one level up, and now I can browse the image folder slash background PNG. And if I save it, I can see a background inside the p tags. So yeah, you can put a background inside any HTML tag that you want. Then you have border radius, as the name says, and due to time I will not add it, but it just add borders, make the round corners of your element. Border is to paint the border of the box. And finally, box shadow is to make a drop shadow effect. So to make a high relief, to drop a shadow to make that the elements is popping up to the screen. I see a like, okay. I don't know what is that for. But in any case, oh, my computer is frozen because, yay. For some reason, my computer got frozen. Okay, I see the mouse here. Perfect. Yeah, no, I don't know what happened. Now, these are the most common properties. Now let's go to the most properties, not rules, properties. Properties. Okay. So the previous one affect the box behind the HTML tag, and these properties affect the style of the text in the box. Color, change the color of the text. Font family, change the color of the font. Font size is the size, and the same says. Font style is the bold, italic. Text transform allows you to convert the text to lowercase, uppercase, and that's usually for design purposes. For example, sometimes you like that your titles are in uppercase, you can do the same. And if you want to have a shadow for your text, remember, box shadow is the box inside the box outside the element, and the text shadow is the box inside the element. So we can make a super mega big example of this right now. So I will add a comment here. These styles will affect the box, and these styles will affect the text. You can see my elements on the screen. Perfect. So we are going to add the properties. For example, background color. And we'll say that the box, we're going to put the box in blue, in light blue, in light blue. And then I will gonna do I cannot do the background image because that will override the color, and I want to see the color. And I will do border radius, 16 pixels. I will say border, and I will say you can choose between solid or dash for dot lines. I will say 8 pixels, super thick border. And I will say I will also use a blue tint color. So for example, cyan, no, navy, like blue. Well, I also use the super tacky blue. No, I hate this blue. Let's use navy. Okay, and now let's use box shadow, shadow, and I will gonna say, because the box shadow is super complex, let's literally use a CSS box shadow generator online. This one doesn't have a certificate, so let's go to the next one. Okay, agree. And I want to call because we are using the blue to represent the box. I will use blue thing colors. So I will use this one, and I will copy these elements. This is a property, box shadow. Oh, sorry, this one already has this one. There you go. So box shadow. Let me go back. So I added my 4 properties. I remember I don't add in background image because that will override my background color. And now let's go to the next slide and let's start adding colors. And to contrast this, instead of blue, for the text elements, I will start using red. In fact, I will paint these boxes red as well, so you can use a reference when you check your slides later. So I will make these ones red. There you go. So I will start with color, and I will say maroon. That is a reg style color. I will say font family, and you can see that the web browser has a lot of fonts by default. So let's use these ones for now. Perfect. Yes, let me hide this one so you can see everything in a single line. The next one, font size. Let's make this one. You can use the words by default, or you can just put 72 pixels to make super big. Font style allows me to make it italic. There is another one that is not here, font weight. Font weight allows me to do bold. And then text transform, let's say uppercase. So everything is in uppercase. And then finally, text shadow. And I think that, let's go again, CSS text shadow generator. Let it load. And where is the text shadow? Oh, thanks. Color. This one is, I don't know why I cannot see the colors, but this is a rec thingy. Perfect. And I will copy this one. Perfect. It's a red kind of shadow. So if I reload the page, oh my God, this looks how ugly as hell. But let me delete this my flex so we just focus on this example. But you can see which elements affect the box. And let me just put this box in a darker blue. Because the problem, okay, now you can see the difference. This is the color of the box. This is the color of the border. This is the color of the box shadow. You can a little bit see the shadow of the text. Oh yeah, you can see it. It's clearly here. This is the shadow of the text, and this is the color of the text. And you can see how everything here affects different elements. One, this one on the top affects the box behind the text, and these properties affect only the text itself. So that's why these properties are for different purposes. Now, let's move to project management, how to organize your projects. First of all, we can start using variables for elements like space and colors. Imagine that the company you're working for has a particular color of yellow. Instead of hard coding the value, the hexadecimal value or the RGB value of that yellow, you can create a variable. Just we're speaking about code, literally code. Imagine that you literally create a variable yellow, define a value for that one, and then in any part of the project, you just call that variable yellow, and there you go. And if for some reason your company update their graphic design and the yellow becomes a little bit orange, you just don't need to change the color in the variable, and then the rest of the web page will be automatically updated with a new value, because instead of hard coding the values, you just create a variable. So good practices. Now, then we're going to speak about how to import fonts, and then how to import CSS files into another files, so we can start breaking down our projects into something more manageable. And this one will take a little bit of a while, because we are gonna build exactly this. So let's take a 10 minutes break. I know that we are over the time, but I warned you during the kickoff that it's super normal that these lectures stand at least 1 hour. So let's take a short break, and we'll be back at 11:10 to continue with how to make this one and organize the files along the way with these properties. So see you at 11:10.